President Muhammadu Buhari says climate change, unconstitutional change of government, and terrorism threatens the attainment of the African Union's Agenda 2063. He said this at the U.S.-Africa Leadership Summit in Washington, D.C., and was also able to rally the support of the U.S. for Africa in strengthening democracy, achieving the energy transition plan, and climate partnerships. TVC News State House correspondent Femi Akonde has more.
President Buhari's participation at the U.S.-Africa Leadership Summit was an opportunity to make a case for Africa and also highlight the numerous factors hindering growth and development on the continent. Leaders on the continent had set Agenda 2063 as a blueprint and master plan for transforming Africa into a global powerhouse of the future. President Buhari believes with strong partnerships, developmental goals can be achieved, and it seems his message has struck the right chords and resonated at the U.S.-Africa Leadership Summit.
The United States is committed to supporting every aspect of Africa's inclusive growth and creating the best possible environment for sustained commercial engagement between Africa companies and American companies. The United States is all in on Africa's future, and the work we've done over the past 2 years, building on decades of vital investments made under previous American presidents.
President Buhari's commitment to the principles of democratic governance and his desire to ensure a smooth civilian-to-civilian transition in Nigeria has also given him an edge and put the country in a pole position in a region bedeviled by military takeovers, electoral violence, and political instability.
He singled out Nigeria and Mr. President for praise. He talked about the fact that he was vice president when our president was first elected in 2015, and that they're very heartened that Nigeria is really a model.
President Buhari used the opportunity to outline the comprehensive energy transition plan unfolded by his administration in response to the issues associated with climate change. His call on the United States for financial and technical support may soon get the required response.
The United States will work closely with African countries as they determine how best to meet their specific energy needs, understanding that for many, the clean energy transition will be a transition to consistent, reliable energy in the first place. We'll do so through programs like Power Africa, which has mobilized the public and private sectors to deliver cleaner, more reliable electricity to over 165 million people in sub-Saharan Africa who previously didn't have access. We're proud to announce a new investment of $290 million in that program.
The U.S. wants Nigeria and Africa to see it as a worthy partner in progress. But the continent is also making its own demands that will propel economic and infrastructure growth and ultimately improve the lives of citizens. Femi Akonde, TVC News, Abuja.
And for more on the just concluded U.S.-Africa Summit, I'm now being joined from Washington, D.C. by the President Emeritus Corporate Council on Africa, Stephen Hayes. Thank you very much for joining us on TVC News this hour. And as a fallout of that summit, the U.S. President noted that indeed democracy, or it is a critical time for democracy across the world, noting that a number of countries in Africa will be having their elections next year: Nigeria, Congo, Liberia, and others. How do you view, this spotlight on democracy, again, especially in Africa?
Well, I think that democracy works best in a healthy economy. And I think that our priorities need to be economic. Certainly, the democracy agenda is important, but I think that the democracy does well under strong energy needs, health care, and so forth. So I think that democracy is perhaps an umbrella is important. Certainly, it's important that the individual has his right to say in terms of governance. But again, I think the issues are much broader than simply an umbrella called democracy.
Right, and President Biden also says that he might just drop by and visit African countries. He didn't say when, he didn't say where he would be visiting, but some observers say it's likely. What, in your view, would be the impact of the Biden presidency visiting Africa?
Well, the impact of any presidential visit is at least half of it is symbolic. And I think certainly the attention of a U.S. president to Africa is important to not only Africa, but also to the diaspora here. And so I think the impact would be significant on that. The president needs to go sooner than later. We don't know if he's going to run again. Some question on that. And so going in 2 years from now, or nearly 2 years from now, when his term is almost over, would I think lessen the impact. I think the impact needs to be made now. So within the next 6 months, I would hope that the president would go to Africa and more than 2 or 3 of the usual countries, but in fact a diverse range of countries, if at all possible.
And Africa has been making the news over the past few years, looking at some countries or certain countries, especially here in West Africa, that have recorded forceful takeover of governments. What are your thoughts? That also featured during the summit, advocacy, so to speak, that Africans generally should preserve their democracies and curb these concerns. What are your thoughts?
Emphasize so directly from the United States point of view is security. And that has, I think, driven a lot of the issues behind the scenes. So I think that's a major concern to the United States. Not simply on anti-terrorism, but I think the Russian influence that seems to be growing, particularly because of factors such as the Wagner Group, are concerning, because usually, even though the Wagner Group may be helping on security issues in certain countries, particularly your region, at the same time, there's a pattern of interfering with government and the directions that the government takes over time. So I think that security is a major concern to the United States, and certainly it's to Africa as well.
And talking about security, even Nigeria's President Muhammadu Buhari also spoke about the need for African leaders to be united in purpose. After all, he says there are, general concerns of security, of terrorism, growing restlessness in certain parts of the continent, which has tendencies to spread. What are your thoughts in this area? That would be the last question. Would I appreciate if you could just make it brief?
Okay, so certainly. I think security, again, is best served with strong economic development. And I think that the U.S. Putting some emphasis on IT and giving stronger IT and energy emphasis is going to be very, very important to meeting security needs as well. It's very difficult without being able to communicate with the vast numbers of populations in Africa. So I think that's vital.
Stephen Hayes, we thank you very much for your contributions on the program.
Thank you.